reading is Psalm 46 and can be found on page 570. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy place where the Most High dwells. God is within her, she will not fall. God will help her at break of day. Nations are in uproar, kingdoms fall. He lifts his voice, the earth melts. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. Come and see what the Lord has done, the desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. He says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord Almighty is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Thank you for bringing that reading to us. And I was actually just reflecting this morning. I hadn't quite realized something that I realized this morning as I heard the passage again and sort of saw it. It's been almost exactly 2 years, I think. So March 17th, 2023 was the last time I intentionally preached about what was left out of a passage rather than what was inside it. And I remember that because it was St. Patrick's Day. And I was absolutely furious that the lectionary had missed out the bit about going and preaching and converting people when we were talking about Patrick, who did exactly that. They did exactly that. And that the church in the UK was a lot to do with the fact that he did. So I preached about that. And today is exactly the same. So I will be coming to elements of what is in the passage, but I'm actually talking about mainly what was left out. And you see, actually, there's a word that should have appeared, I'm guessing about 4, maybe 5 times in that passage that we've removed. And it's a word, Selah. And the reason that it's been removed is it's because it's not part of the text. It's an instruction to go alongside it. So they've taken it out. And actually, it appears in the Psalms, in the versions that we read, it doesn't really appear. We won't see it. But it should appear over 70 times. We should see this word over and over again as we read the Psalms. We should see Selah, Selah, Selah just keep popping up. But we've taken it out. Now, what does it mean? Well, it's a Hebrew word. And I do have to use it on occasion. And I'll tell you how in a second. And I do have to use it on occasion. And the way that I remember it, and this is genuinely true, by the way, is that when Liverpool finish second in the league this year, they're going to have to sell a Mo Salah. And that is how I remember it. It sounds really stupid, but ahead of morning prayer, that's what I say in my head when I say, "And we will be pausing at the Selah." Because in its most used way, if you use Book of Common Prayer or Common Worship, you see in morning prayer a little red diamond, and you pause. Because in its simplest terms, it means pause. Stop. It's an instruction. But like for those of you who do any amateur or professional dramatics, you will know you don't read the bit in italics. You take that bit out, and you have left the text that we have here. So Selah, it means pause. It's an instruction to stop. Specifically, If any of you did your sort of grade 4 violin or equivalent when you were growing up or still doing it, you'll remember some of the theory that you had to do and the instructions that come alongside. Well, this is a musical instruction. So it's to the person directing the music. It's like, do you remember pianissimo? Or I'm trying to remember some of the others. Pizzicato was one I had to do on the violin, or accelerando if you wanted to get a little bit faster. I did that too much. Slow down. It's that sort of thing. An instruction, particularly to the person directing, and it's telling them to stop. But as always, the simplest explanation isn't always the fullest. There is a lot more to it, because it's not just a stop completely. It's a temporary pause, and it's to allow things to change up. So stop doing it the way that you've been doing it so that you can do things a little bit different. So that might be that for a time, you're about to change the tempo or the volume, or you're going to change whoever it is that's contributing musically, whichever instrument is playing at the time. It's that sort of thing. Selah. Stop. And change it up. Now, it's funny, actually, that it should be removed. And whilst I completely understand why it has been, because it doesn't add to the text as such, what it does do is remind us that in the cadence of our Christian walk, as much as in our reading of things or playing of music, there are different times to do things differently. And it's this refrain reminding us to do that that's quite important. So I'm almost sad that it's gone. You will see it, hopefully in many texts. If you go down to the bottom, you know those little bits that say C, and then has something beside it at the bottom, the footnotes of each passage. So you will see it there. And you will see actually how many times it's supposed to be in the passage usually. So you might have a look. And I'm interested, and I know not everyone's interested in the things I'm interested in, but as we go forward looking at Psalms, to sort of think, well, actually, I wonder, what is this psalmist trying to do here? Because when we read it straight, we're missing what they've designed. So I'm going to be looking at the bottom from now on, and I'm going to be seeing where and how many times this word Selah appears, so that it might help my reading of it. But that's not just what we're going to talk about this morning. If it is something that appears there, if it is part of an instruction as to what we're to do as we're reading these Psalms, I want to have a quick look at what it might mean for us, what it means to do and to call Selah, when we might do it, and why we might do it, and particularly looking at, throughout the whole of, as I'm talking, why right now is the perfect time for us to do it. And I mean us, as in collectively, those of us who are sitting here feeling part of St. James' Church. Why is this the right time for the word Selah to be called? So the first thing is about when is the right time. Well, pivotal moments such as this, I think, are key. A time of transition where we've been going at a particular pace, and that pace has continued for a time, and that is the pace and the direction that we've been on. We've been playing at the same tempo and at the same volume for a while, and of course, these things fluctuate, but generally going down the same script. But now, we stop. So it's important to think of when do we do Selah? Well, actually, when things are changing, we need to see that and change accordingly. Why? Because, well, actually, there's nothing worse than playing out of time, is there? There's nothing worse than when you keep going at a particular pace or a particular volume or in a particular key, and actually that is not fitting to the mood or the music or to what everybody else is doing. So when do we call Selah? Well, when there's a change needed. And now is a good time to do it as a church. But also, we shouldn't just leave it until it gets to that point. You see, Selah is called 71 times, I think, in the Bible, in the Psalms at very least. It's consistent. Because actually, if we don't do it until we really got to do it, well, then it doesn't feel that natural. And we struggle to do it particularly well. So as well as doing it when we really need to do it, we should intentionally do it when we don't need to do it. And we'll talk about what the benefits you get from doing that. But practicing changing, practicing stopping, practicing pausing, so that when it does come, we actually feel the benefits of doing it and are able to do it really well. The problem with leaving it until you've really got to do it is sometimes we don't feel good at doing it. It feels out of place. It feels strange. It feels different. Doing it consistently, calling Selah in our lives as a church or personally, is a good thing to do because it gives us practice for when we really need to do it. So it's a strange one because we don't want to do it all the time because our lives are to be patterned. We don't want to end up just like sort of contemporary jazz, which I don't understand the patterns of and feels all a bit strange all the time. We don't want that. We want some patterns, but we don't want to leave it so long that the patterns start to drive us and take control, and then therefore we feel constricted by them. Calling Selah allows us to do that, to stop. So it would be good to do it not just when we need to do it, but when we don't as well. So it should be patterned and planned, but we should be flexible enough to do it when we need to do it. Sometimes calling Selah will be enforced. And I was reflecting on this week. There was an enforced change of timing and pattern for me. I'm not linking these two things directly, but I came here for a meeting on Tuesday morning, and by Tuesday evening, I was flat in bed, proper ill, proper flu. And that took out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Friday, I struggled up and took a shower. Everyone was delighted. Saturday, I managed to watch the rugby. And today, here I am, paracetamol-free, just about managing to stay standing. No, I'm doing much better. But it was an enforced break, actually. I had no choice in it. But it felt uncomfortable. But it was necessary, because if I had continued on in the pattern that I had been doing, at the pace and at the tempo and at the same volume, well, I'm afraid that wouldn't have been good for anybody. I was enforced to stop and to change my pace. And the much better thing for me to do was to accept that, to lean into that, and to figure out what God was saying to me within it. Similarly, there'll be a chosen time that you might want to do it, and next week I'm going away where it's half term, and we're going to go and we're going to stay with family. Hopefully a much more enjoyable enforced break than the one that I've just been on. So there are times and patterns that it can fit. There are times when it's enforced because, frankly, we haven't done it and it's got us there. But there are times that we should choose to do it because there are many benefits. So the when we do it, it's a little bit confusing. We have to be flexible. We have to be able to move with the times and see when is the right time to do it, but we also have to be intentional and be practiced and make sure we take the opportunities. So why is it good to call Selah? I think the first reason is that it allows us to recharge. Going at the same pace and at the same tempo goes against our very created ontology. We are called to take that break. We're meant to stop. And the consequences of not doing that at all could be burnout, ill health, relational breakdown, tiredness, illness, all sorts of things. We call Selah sometimes just to stop. Now, what's wonderful is it also reminds us that we're part of a bigger orchestra. Because when we stop, others step up. One of the best things about being in an orchestra is when you sort of pipe down, it allows space for other groups and other instruments to pipe up. I used to play in the strings. I mean, we hated it when the trumpets had a go. They were just brash and loud. But actually, other people loved it. And what was good about it was that actually you can't dominate the whole time and keep going. You need to give other people a role. Now, very interestingly, during vacancy is one of the times that in the diocese we see leaders being called out possibly more than any other time. That's because one leader has stepped aside and it leaves space for others to step up. And I wonder what that might mean for us. As those who have been carrying great weights and have been continuing and have been going and have been working, as they need to stop and pause and think like the rest of us, what might it mean as to who can and is willing to step into that space? Because if Selah means to stop for some, it might mean to step up for others. Because remember, it's not just a pause, it's a stop to change the tempo, to change things up. Now, how do we know what to change up? Well, actually, that's the second good thing that Selah gives us. As well as a chance to recharge, it gives us a chance to reassess. It's quite hard sometimes to try and set a direction if you've already set off and you're going. It's quite hard to make adjustments as you keep going at the same pace. Sometimes you have to slow down, and that's what we're doing as a church. Mark called Selah. He said that things were going to need to change. We blessed Mark and Della into that space, and we said, yes, we bless you into retirement. That is the right decision for you, and we'll continue to pray for them. And I heard from them this week, and they seem very happy and have moved, and all is well. So bless them, and we'll continue to pray for them. But Mark called Selah. He said things need to change. And as part of that, we need to reassess what it is that needs to change. We need to be able to think about, well, what has gone well? What has been good? What has been a blessing that we want to keep? We need to think about where we've just continued on and actually gone past what God has called us to be, and where we need to step back. What could be better? We need to think about where God is moving already and how we go with him there. And the thing is, it's hard to do those things if we're already and still moving in a particular direction. So Selah is good, not just because it gives us a chance to take a break, but actually because it gives us this space to reassess where God is calling us to be. And what this new tempo and new volume is, and how we achieve it. So it calls us and gives us space to recharge. It gives us an opportunity to reassess. But the last one is that it gives us an opportunity to create room to hear what the conductor is saying. I don't know about you, I was so focused when I was playing my music that I would rarely look up at the conductor. I'll just be honest with that. Because I thought if I just did my bit, I would know what was going on with my bit, and everyone else can do their bit. And it was only when I wasn't needed that I would look up and I would see what else was going on. And I could see that actually, maybe I've got it right, and maybe I haven't. What was really interesting in that passage that we just heard was that it speaks of God's great and grand ability to act. It speaks of his power and his majesty. But where does it say that we will know he's God? it isn't in his grand action. It isn't in the voice like an earthquake at the start. It isn't in his mighty deeds. It isn't in his bringing the nations to the knees. It's when we're still that we will know that he is God. It's when we stop relying on what we can do. It's when we stop trying to control the process. It's when we stop thinking, actually, if we just do A, then B, then C, then we will achieve God's will in our lives. It's actually when we stop that we know that he is God. That we're reminded that everything we try and achieve will only actually be achieved by him. That we're reminded that our power is certainly finite when compared to his infinite power. It gives us a chance to remember that actually in the peace and the quiet we find that he is God. And that not through controlling a process, not through taking the right steps, not through seeking our will over something, will we find out what the right way is, but actually through stopping, through being still, and through knowing that through it all he is God. That is how he will achieve all things. Now, Selah, therefore, doesn't always feel that natural and comfortable, because it means giving over control and giving it back to the person conducting our lives and our church's ministry. It doesn't always feel natural and comfortable because, frankly, we don't always practice it particularly well. We're locked in sometimes to a pattern that we stick to, and that's fine by us. But it appears constantly as a refrain through the Psalms calling us to stop, to take stock, to do things differently, and to leave space for God to speak. And that takes me back almost to where we started in terms of why we're talking about this now. Because we are entering a process and a time that is different. It was enforced in a sense, in that the decision was made elsewhere, but it's different. And we have a possible outcome that we want to see, which is God to call somebody new to be the rector here. And we have a choice, but also an opportunity. And that's why, instead of just being amongst the violins today, I'm going to stand here and pretend to be the conductor, pretend I've got my baton, and I'm going to call us to Selah, as a church, to stop, to change the tempo, to do things slightly differently, and to allow space for God to speak. Now, we've got a couple of opportunities to do that. They're limited because, we don't want it to take forever. So we want things to move, and that's good and right. And we want things to move on, so we want to advertise, but actually we want to do that knowing or hoping that we know what it is that God is calling us to do and to be. So we have opportunities to do that. Please take them up. I'm glad so many of you are here, hopefully with the thought of going to the next discernment meeting, which is today. But we're actually going to start doing some of that work today and now. We've had some wonderful words of proclamation and praise in our first hymns, and we're going to do something slightly different. We're very intentionally going to have a different style and tempo of song, which is going to give us space to call upon God to speak to us now. Now, it might be that actually the vacancy and all that is to do with it is the thing that's on your mind that you wish to hear from God about. And that's great. So if that's the case, please do pray into that and allow that space, allow this space to be an opportunity for you to do that. But it might not be the only thing. It might be that there are things in your life and your mind that are going through your head. There are decisions you need to make. There are things that you are concerned about. And if that's the case, then this is just as good an opportunity to bring those things as anything else. But we're going to take that time and that space. I'm calling Selah a time to pause and reflect. And as I pass over to the song worship team, I pray that you will allow space for God to speak to you.